Senators, apologies, but the technical difficulties I want to make clear were not as a result of anything that GIS is not handling. It was as a result of other things. And when the Senate last rose, we were discussing the extension of the state of emergency. Senator, Honorable Minister for Home Affairs, Justice and National Security.
Thank you, Madam President. Just want to wrap up. But as I said, it is always important to hear from members opposite and the independent senators, because we can learn from each other. I just want to highlight a member from the Law House, Honorable Sean Edwards, when he talked about his constituents who were affected negatively by the COVID-19 virus, and that he had to be out there speaking to them, and thankfully that all of them have recovered and are doing well. But still, the stigma that was associated with having the virus was overwhelming for some of those individuals, and that he used his good office to go around and explain to persons that they should not occur. And because of his influence, those persons are doing much better. So I want to thank him for doing that. And I think that is what we are asking for from members of Parliament. In conclusion, I would like to thank our frontliners, the CMO and her team of doctors, the nurses, the domestic workers at the hospital, our police officers who are doing a fantastic job, the correctional officers who sometimes slip through the cracks, not realizing that they are the custodians of over 500 inmates. And if they are not very proactive and this were to enter that facility, then we may be in trouble. So I want to thank them again. Our fire officers who are doing the transporting of some of the patients, the team of persons who do the contact tracing, that is very important. The workers in the supermarket, we seem to just gloss over them, but they have to be at work. They are exposed to every individual who comes to them, and sometimes the transportation system is so sporadic that they have difficulty in getting home. Whereas other workers are given the opportunity and the luxury of having special transport for them to take them home after they work or to take them to work. These supermarket individuals do not have that luxury. So I want to thank them for the work that they've been doing. I've mentioned the bus drivers, but I will mention them again. They are exposed, and right now with the protocol that is in place, they're making less money, but they're very enthusiastic and playing their part. Of course, there are some of those the journalists. We need to thank them. We need to thank the TV stations, the radio stations, the talk show, the media on a whole, but some talk show hosts. But not all of them. You know, there are some of them who have their own agenda. They know themselves. Yes, they know themselves. And to the general public, I want to say that you are doing a good job. The majority of you are following the protocol, and it is because of the method in which they are conducting themselves that I think that we have not seen any more spread, or we have not gotten into any spike. So I want to ask them to continue to adhere to the rules. It is not easy, especially in this weather. It is very good weather to go to the beach or the river, but all of us have to make that sacrifice and stay home for the betterment of our people. To the Attorney General, I know during this time of emergency, he and his staff have to dish out SIs as if you're a baker making bread. And it is not easy to sit and do an SI and make sure that you have all your T's and I's crossed and your I's dotted. And so it takes a lot of time and patience on behalf of the AG and his staff to have gotten those documents correct. I also want to thank the NEMO staff who did a fantastic job, although, and it is new to us, so there is going to be teething problems, and we expect that by now we will be able to correct some of the problems that we envisage. We have a poverty list, we have an indigent list, and it is very old, and maybe some persons cannot be found. So this crisis has given us an opportunity to reassess and to make sure that everybody who needs assistance from the state will get that sort of assistance. I want to thank the artists, Wu Hingson and Taj and all the others for giving of the time to assist in the telephone, which was very successful. And again, we saw the generosity of St. Lucians. I mean, a country like Jamaica that is so big with all these reggae stars and so on, could not even compete with us. So I want to thank the general public for the generosity, the business places, the individuals who donated money, members of the diaspora, although they're having difficulties, still found the time and the ability to pledge, and we want to thank them for that. I also want to thank the Cuban government and the nurses and doctors who are here. I pray that our people will treat them well, we give them all the love and attention that they need, and when we see them, that we encourage them and thank them personally for what they have done. In concluding, I want to thank the Honorable Prime Minister for his stewardship in those difficult times. I pray that the good Lord will continue to bless and keep him and to lead us to the promised land in a very short time. I thank you very much, Madam President.
Honorable Minister in the Ministry of Tourism, Information, Broadcasting, Culture and Creative Industries, responsible for culture and creative industries.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I think it will be remiss of me if I didn't add my voice to the debate at hand. And just to say that I very much support this motion. And of course, in supporting the motion, I think we've all come to recognize that COVID-19 has really created an indelible mark, on our country. And for the first time in the history of St. Lucia, if I'm not mistaken, we can probably go to the AG, if I'm not mistaken, we've had a state of emergency. And so that alone spoke volumes, you understand, to our people. There's been another time? What year? 79 we had a state of emergency? Oh, I didn't know we had a state of emergency because I did my research and I didn't get that. But in any case, so, and Madam President, but the whole issue of COVID has really been a complex one for us. But I think importantly from what we're drawing from both sides is the fact that it provided us, and even now, the opportunity for reflection and the opportunity for us to be very clear on what it is we are doing and how we're going to get where we're going. This is what COVID has done for us. You see, Madam President, when we took stock, or we take stock, and which is what I saw the member for the leader of, the opposition leader of business, the leader of opposition business in the House attempting to do, was to really summarize some of the key learnings that we've picked up in our society with respect to COVID. But I think importantly for us, and all of us, we know that we could not have achieved the level of success that we have today without good stewardship. And leadership is key in managing any country. And what was offered to us, you understand, this team on this side, what we saw in the leadership of our country is a leader who is committed to the processes of engagement, consultation, you understand? And even sometimes we saw him cajoling and pleading and begging with us You understand? To maintain the protocols that were established by the ministry. So this is the type of leadership that we have. Leadership that is caring, and is concerned about the well-being of our people. And we saw that manifested through all the programming, you understand, during the last few weeks. Yeah? The way we manage the quarantine centers, the way we manage our command center, the way we took care of our people and said thanks to them, you understand, for the effort that they made. This is the leadership role that we're talking about. We talked about, and I think, Madam, if I may ask for your support here, in speaking of the strengths, the member for the opposition who carries the leadership, he spoke about all the strengths, that we had great professionals, you know, we were able to move OKEU, you know, we were able to establish a respiratory hospital. All of those things did not just happen. All of those things, even if they were forced to happen, because sometimes it takes extraordinary circumstances to make things go, even if it happened, but we had leadership that was positioned in the right way. You understand? And when the situation hit us, we were able to respond, and not just respond, but respond in the right way and in the way that was necessary. This is what we were able to achieve, and this is a fundamental lesson with respect to COVID 2019. We have a good leader in the person of Alan Michael Chasney, who understood the problem first before he went out to do what was required. And most of all, he had the confidence in the people within the system, the confidence of the chief medical officer, the confidence of your acting police commissioner, the confidence of the key players in the system. This is why we are successful today. This is the only reason why we're successful, because we have leadership that is understanding and knows what leadership is about. Not leadership that will stand on a side and say, St. Lucia is our worst prepared. Not that kind of leadership. We have leadership that takes time to understand the system and provide the services to enable our country to do better. So I just felt, Madam Chair, Madam President, that I couldn't sit by and allow everything that has been said, which is relevant, because we had lessons to learn, we have weaknesses, but the key thing is we have leadership that is able to help us rise above that, you understand, and get it right. That is my only contribution to this, and we need the state of emergency because it allows us to continuously assess where we are as a people, you understand, and make the right choices and decisions with respect to us going forward with COVID, because we have not seen the worst yet. I think we're only at the beginning. That's my assessment. We are only at the beginning, and we've done a fantastic job with the beginning, but there are lessons to be learned. And I think all of us, we will continue to contribute, given the type of leadership we have, Madam President, will continue to contribute to making that process much easier for our St. Lucians to go through. But we have to yield the advice of the Ministry of Health, we have to yield the advice of our commander from the security forces to ensure that we comply to be able to get it right for our society. There is much work to be done. We're only at the beginning. And I want to thank those persons who work. Thank you very much, Madam Minister of Health, for supporting that team, albeit behind the scenes. But that's important too. We need people at every level providing support in every area to make it happen. And so we are happy with what we're seeing. I'm so proud to be a part of that team that made that difference to ensure that today, St. Lucia can be recorded in the power records as being zero with respect to the COVID virus. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Senator Thomas Francis.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Madam President, mine will be extremely brief as well. I think also it will be remiss of me if I do not add my voice to the debate this afternoon. Madam President, it's inevitable that we extend the state of emergency. So I have absolutely no difficulty with the bill before us. I support it. I would like to take this opportunity as well to echo the sentiments that have been shared so eloquently here today in terms of the fantastic job that the country has done in managing COVID-19. I want to add my profound appreciation to the team at the forefront, the frontline team who managed and led the charge in terms of taking us to the place that we are, the admirable place that we are as a country in terms of the 100% recovery of COVID-19 cases in this country. Let's give them a round of applause, if I may, Madam President. Madam President, I would also like to extend my sincere condolences to the many St. Lucian families who are grieving as a direct result of the passing of their loved ones as a result of COVID-19. It has come very close to home. My family, we've lost, one loved one in England. We've also lost one in New York. So we too, we are going through our own emotional trauma in terms of, the impact of COVID-19. So, Madam President, we're not out of the woods yet. We've done a fantastic job in taking the country to the stage it's at yet, but we are not out of the woods yet. The experts are telling us we're not out of the woods yet. They are predicting another wave of COVID, Madam President. As a matter of fact, the PAHO representative of the region did say that in this region, the Caribbean region, we need to be very vigilant because we can anticipate that things will become a little more dire than they have been. So we have to take heed. So my message, of course, is to say that, I am very proud of everything we've done so far, but we must not let our guards down. In addition to the persons in the front line, Madam President, I would like to also add my thanks and appreciation to the citizenry which complied with the protocols that contributed to us being where we are today. So special thanks to them, and I would like to implore all citizens to continue in that vein, such that come end of May, we may have an equally good story. So, Madam President, on this note, I'd like to end my presentation. Brief, as I said.
Senator Jean-Pierre.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to join my voice in supporting the extension of the state of emergency. Madam President, the very first case that we recorded in St. Lucia, as a result of my profession, I happened to be in the middle of it. So you can understand the situation that I was in. And I would love to say to our people that sometimes you don't get the sense of it unless you're in the middle of it. I think COVID-19 will allow us and give us the chance and to create a mindset in St. Lucia that we have to understand it's not business as usual. All that have been said, no need to repeat. I think that we've done a wonderful job. But I would like to single out the hotel workers. At the time when that situation broke out, I would love to single out Audrey and her team at Starfish. The tremendous pressure that these people were in and the level of care. And also, I would love to say that just like HIV when it came out, COVID-19, we had a level of people's, even how we got stigmatized. We already had people in St. Lucia calling the schools and reporting to school principal who was the driver that drove XYZ. We have to be careful. We have to understand it is a national, it's a world pandemic, and we are not out of the woods. Madam President, I would love to extend my condolences to the families of those loved ones in New York in particular. Victor Botimangal was one. We went to school together. We played cricket at school together. Just about a year ago, I met Botti in New York. I had not seen him for 40-something plus years after we left school. We reconnected. When I got this telephone call, it was shocking. Another gentleman from New York, from Miku, who is actually close to my sister. I've got extended families all over the world. I've got children in Bermuda, Scotland, name it, within the Caribbean. So COVID-19 is actually teaching me a new lesson, that redefining life as far as I see it. And we have to be careful. Like everybody else have said, we are not out of the woods. I think our people have to understand and learn that the measures that are being put in place is to protect life. Mighty America, mighty New York cannot contain it. Far less us with our scarce resources. With that said, my frontliners, the good job with the support of the relevant ministers and ministries, I do applaud. Our firemen, I grew up, my first job in St. Lucia was a fireman. I worked as a fireman for 9 years. So I know what it is to be on the front line. So at the end of the day, as the Minister of National Security have said, and as my fellow senator from Miku South, I am hoping that our frontliners will be compensated adequately for this tremendous job. I thank you.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Madam President. I wish to say that I appreciate all the comments that were put forward here today. And this is causing my glasses to fog. Of course, I want to invite, in the interest of time, Madam President, because we have some business to do that is critical after this session, I want to invite all my fellow senators to reach out to me if they have any questions or any issues pertaining to healthcare and COVID, as it is. I can also, if it is something technical, I can always refer you to my CMO, give you her number and so on, so that you can get more clarity if you need to do so. Because I find it strange that no opposition parliamentarian has reached out to me as Minister of Health so that I can either guide them along the right route, or if it is something that we have that they need, and I say we, it's government, it's the people's government, then I can, assist them with that. But anyway, the funds for the telephone, fellow senator asked, what are they for? It is just a contribution towards PPEs for our frontline workers, as well as to contribute towards the food effort. Capacity in terms of testing, you've heard we have tested 386 persons, compared to Dominica with 293, Grenada 45, St. Vincent 56, St. Kitts and Nevis 183, and I think Belize is even much lower than ourselves. And that is, I can send you that information, Senator, because I notice you want to write something down. There is a table, and I can send that to you. I can make that available. Madam President, I heard about the people who come forward to assist us, our diplomatic support in St. Lucia, and I want to say that we all know about Cuba. Cuba has supplied us with 113 nurses and doctors. The government and people of Taiwan, we have received $20,000 US in the first instance. We are now waiting for, I think it is 5,000 PPEs and some other material, some other support from them that I think should be arriving here anytime as we speak. We get assistance from PAHO, we get assistance from WHO. We have actually gotten assistance from these agencies, and the amounts and the different types of assistance is well documented. We have assistance from EU, the UN, World Bank, and of course you saw all our corporate partners coming on board during the COVID telephone. The budget for COVID from St. Lucia, from the Ministry of Health, was $41 million in the first instance. You know that we are going to surpass that because initially we were recommending that people get house quarantined. That was not working out, so we had to talk to the hotels, and thanks to the managers and the owners of these hotels who came forward and agreed to allow us to use some of their facilities for us to do the quarantine, take quarantine measures as needed. Our cruise ship workers, of course, you know, we transported our Cuban medical personnel from Cuba to St. Lucia. We had to charter a flight. All of that cost a lot of money that we did not budget for. We also are looking at bringing home the cruise ship nationals. We do not know whether the cruise ships will agree to support transporting them home, although they have that responsibility, but we are not depending on them. If we can, you know, do it in a way that is faster for them to get home, because remember, these are our daughters, brothers, sisters, children who have been out there floating for a very long time. So their state of mind and everything else is of paramount importance to us as a government, and we are making every effort to try and bring them home as quickly as possible. Because so many borders are closed, it is proving to be very challenging, but we have our ambassadors in the diaspora working to try and make that happen. Madam President, having said all of this, and we hear so many comments, there are so many things that we can say in this House today about this whole virus situation, I want to remind us as a nation, as a people, that we ought not to do like the children of Israel. Madam President, and I just, you know, have to say this today. You remember the children of Israel under the Pharaoh? They were enslaved, suffering, and we have a few Christian people in here. We have a few real church people in here. And something that should have taken 40 days, Madam President, took them 40 years. So let us just, everybody, hands on board, get all the hands on deck. If there is an issue, please bring it to our attention. Feel free, you are part of government, and let us deal with it. Because the back and forth during COVID is really absolutely not necessary. We cannot deal with that right now. And Madam President, people are asking, where is the Minister of Health? Here I am today. I am at all the PAHO meetings online. I sit at my home and I stream on Zoom all day long, into the night, Saturdays and Sundays, Madam President. And you know what they say about a good man? They say a successful man has a good woman behind you. In this case, my frontline workers are the successful men. And this woman is behind them, giving them the support they need. So, Madam President, with these few words, I submit that to you today. Let us not be like the children of Israel. Thank you, Madam President.
Senators, the question is that Parliament extend an additional period commencing from the 27th of April 2020 and ending on the 31st day of May 2020 in accordance with Section 17(6) of the Constitution of St. Lucia, Cap 1.01, the Constitution of St. Lucia. Resolution of Parliament approving declaration of state of emergency passed as statutory instrument number 40 of 2020 that approved the state of emergency that was published in the Gazette on the 23rd day of March 2020 as statutory instrument number 39 of 2020 containing a declaration that a public emergency has arisen as a result of the occurrence of 2019 nCoV, an infectious disease commonly known as COVID-19, for a further period of 26 days commencing from the 31st day of March 2020 and ending on the 26th day of April 2020. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Bills. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move the first reading of a bill shortly entitled National Insurance Corporation Amendment.
National Insurance Corporation Amendment.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move for the suspension of Standing Order number 49-2 to allow the bill to go through its remaining stages at this sitting.
Senators, the question is that Standing Order number 49-2 be suspended in order to allow the Honorable Leader of Government Business to proceed with the remaining stages of the bill at this sitting. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Leave is granted. Proceed, Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move the second reading of a bill shortly entitled National Insurance Corporation Amendment. Madam President, I will go through the preamble which was so aptly prepared by the staff of the Legislative Drafting Department under the leadership, of course, of our Attorney General. Madam President, the bill under consideration is the National Insurance Corporation Amendment Bill, the bill. The purpose of the bill is to amend the National Insurance Corporation Act, Cap 1601, to provide relief to contributors who have lost their jobs as a result of COVID-19. Clause 3 of the bill amends Section 2 of the Act to provide a new definition for the term economic relief program, sort of an unemployment insurance program, Madam President. Clause 4 of the bill amends Section 3 of the Act, establishment of National Insurance Fund, to provide that payments under an economic relief program can be paid out of that fund. Clause 5 of the bill introduces a new Part 5A economic relief program under the Act to make provision for establishing an economic relief program where 30% or more of insured persons have suffered a loss of income as a result of a pandemic declared by the World Health Organization. Under this new part, provision is also made for prescribing an insured person's entitlement, the conditions, the claim for economic relief, payment, and the grounds for causing payment under an economic relief program, ceasing payment under an economic relief program. Consequently, Madam President, the Minister is given the power to make regulations for all matters required or permitted to be prescribed under this new part, and generally for any matter relating to an economic relief program. By virtue of Clause 6 of the bill, Madam President, Section 82 of the Act, Offences and Penalties, a person who seeks to obtain a payment under a prescribed economic relief program for himself or herself or some other person by making a false statement or representation, or who produces or furnishes or causes to be produced or furnished a document or information which he or she knows to be false, commits an offense and may be liable to summary conviction. Madam President, the COVID-19 Social Stabilization Plan proposed that the National Insurance Corporation would provide financial assistance to persons who have lost their jobs as a result of COVID-19. Therefore, we have to amend the National Insurance Corporation Act to allow the corporation to establish an economic relief program where 30% or more of insured persons have suffered economic loss as a result of the pandemic declared by the World Health Organization. Madam President, the bill amends the provision of the Act which provides for the interpretation of the Act to include a new definition for the term economic relief program. This is a new term used in the amendments being made to the Act. Therefore, Madam President, all this is asking for is an amendment that will allow the National Insurance Corporation to be able to pay out funds as relief to workers who have become, their contributors, who have become unemployed as a result of the passage of COVID. Madam President, the Minister of Labor has already furnished us with information that the Labor Department have received numbers to the effect that over 40% of those persons have been affected by COVID. And it is on that basis that we are putting this facility in place so that these people can get paid some sort of economic relief, which does not obtain right now under the current situation in the NIC Act. Madam President, I submit this amendment for approval of this Honorable House.
Honorable Senators, the question is that the National Insurance Corporation Amendment Bill be read a second time. Honorable Leader of Opposition Business.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Senators. Of course, we've had a lengthy break, and during that time we were allowed to, we certainly had time to discuss and mentioned a few things that probably I would find no need to speak to it again. But except for this very important piece of legislation, Madam President, I just need to ask or to seek clarification on a few things. One of the statements made in the previous with regards to the budget for COVID-19, the Leader of Government Business indicated that the cost was $41 million. Big one.
Leader of Government Business.
Just on a point of elucidation, Madam President, I said that was Ministry of Health's budget. That does not include anything else or any other ministry.
Okay. Thank you very much. The Ministry of Health budget for COVID. So therefore, I take it that any relief support would not have been included in this budget. And of course, thanks for the clarification. Madam President, the issue of the NIC, Madam President, and I listened to the debate in the lower house with regards to the statement, you guarded jealously. And just as a lay person, an individual who, when I entered the service in 1991, Madam President, I entered the service at a period where the position was no longer pensionable, and then monies were being deducted as a civil servant, so our contributions went directly to the National Insurance Corporation. And Madam President, when you're working in the environment and persons are receiving pension for government, and you know at some point in time you would retire, then you look to the agency and you always remember that's where your benefits will come from when you've retired. You tend to think of it in a way different to persons who expect retirement elsewhere. And therefore, Madam President, I have paid attention. I've had discussions with the financial control over the years, try to monitor the issue of when it's time for me to retire, what is the nature of the relationship. Madam President, during the time I have worked over the years, my time, Madam President, there's some changes that has taken place in St. Lucia that has caused government to look towards the National Insurance Scheme for support one way or the other. I know the creation of NIPRO that has invested in a number of what I consider social goods through a similar situation of what obtained with NIPDEC in Trinidad, facilitated St. Lucia in terms of having a number of what I call a number of social goods like our prisons and rehabilitations of police stations through some sort of arrangement. And I'm sure, Madam President, while these things happened, if you are a contributor to NIC, you are asking the question to yourself from time to time, is my retirement intact? And a lot of St. Lucians who would be concerned that is the only form of recourse when they would have come to an end, the days in work, will always be asking the question, NIC, are you okay? You know, and the closer you get to retirement, the more anxious you are about this. In fact, Madam President, to be honest, I get to the point right now, I'm prepared to, if they're willing, to reduce on the total and accept something and take off, because I notice what's happening in this world. And therefore, Madam President, even the actions of government at this time, on behalf of persons who are contributing to the NIC, it's only fair that certain questions be asked. When these things are done to support workers, what would happen to those of us who eventually have to retire? What is the state of the objective of the NIC? Because the NIC was established to provide support to citizens when they get to a certain time. We have changed the age because we have an aging population. And of course, we understood that there are issues with regards to how persons contribute. But here we are with this pandemic, unprecedented, nobody expected it. And we have a large percentage of persons who are unemployed. And we are responding in making this contribution to workers. Madam President, the point has been made, and I think it needs to be echoed again. The opposition supports clearly that government or NIC is going to provide relief, economic relief to persons. The quantum is something that I would like to, how did we arrive at the amount? The nature of I think that is in the regulations, but in this, the Parent Act itself, the concerns about is there a sunset clause? Will it come to an end? How do we differentiate within that clause a crisis that is not a pandemic, but requires similar action, you know, or you may have more persons unemployed? Is there is the NIC thinking of a situation where it could be worse off, but the NIC is not the appropriate mechanism to respond? What can, if this thing goes on and on and on, if we have a second wave, would the NIC be in a position to continue to respond? How long will these persons remain out of a job? And can the NIC sustain making this amount of funds, you know, available to those workers, economic relief? The amount is said to be approximately, I think, 80 million. Approximately, that's what I've heard they've mentioned. What this amount represents, is it a 1 month? Is it 3 months? And since I've heard also that the annual contribution of the NIC is approximately 90, or they're about the same amount, would that cause the NIC to lose 1 year of support in future? How will the NIC recover from a grant contribution? Would it be best that the government provide core support of the amount? I heard government is giving 20 million to persons who are not contributors to NIC. And when you think of the amount of 20 million, it is way inadequate. Is it a real amount? What kind of support? How will the government provide that support? So, Madam President, there are a lot of questions being asked. And that is why, Madam President, I notice every time I try to connect my contribution to other important parameters. Madam President, we're certainly in a situation where the government need to find ways and means to support the working population at this point in time. And I do not believe NIC alone can do it. And that is why, Madam President, I do recommend that we consider some of our current infrastructure agendas and decide how much of a priority these things are, and to divert resources towards providing support to St. Lucians who are unemployed. One classic example, I'm asking, can we suspend at this point in time, Madam President, the large amount that is being invested on St. Jude at this point in time and proceed with completing the East Wings and commissioning it, as against spending $100 million? Madam President, I cannot help but to recall that we have removed sums from the NIC for other projects. One project in question was the Cabot project. We've invested $30 million to develop the golf course. How do we juxtapose this? And you shake your head. You know, I know, Madam President, your answer to any debate on contribution by the opposition is say nothing. Thank you very much, comrade. How do we juxtapose this amount that has been taken out of the NIC, 30 million, when we already recognize, Madam President, that we have our population that has inverted where we have an aging population? Madam President, it means in the near future, we will have less persons working to support a lot more senior persons. In fact, we will have less persons contributing to the NIC in a few years' time because of how our population has changed. So when you take all of these things into consideration, Madam President, and if, Madam President, you and I are only depending on the NIC for retirement, Madam President, we would be concerned about the health of the NIC in a few years' time. You understand, Madam President? And I think it's only good that